went and painted the Domitian Abbey on Mount Zion, the fresco there on the ceiling and so on. Just by that time he'd gone and lost it. I don't know if he's still alive or not. Many years ago I met him. But anyway, he first one who introduced me to Daniel. I had never read Daniel when I was young. In any case, this is the first kingdom of God, and it comes after the other kingdom, the kingdom of heaven. So that's the first time it's announced. Make of it what you will. So you can see why Christians are really enthusiastic about this book, and why Jews after the fall of the temple were less enthusiastic and less. It kind of demoted a bit because it frightened them, worried them, particularly in its apocalyptic approach, because the rabbinic approach to things blamed the war against Rome and the debacle that ensued on this kind of literature. And they were right in that sense. This literature did encourage struggle in a holy war sense. It's gone into Islam almost directly. The holy war ideology, the jihad ideology, comes right out of this literature, goes into, in the Dead Sea Scrolls for sure, goes into Christianity and into Islam. Christianity is also mellowed by Pauline Christianity, which turns more like rabbinic Judaism. You know, Paul has a Roman citizenship after. And he, in Romans, believes in deferring to the secular powers and so on and so forth. This literature doesn't defer to anybody. And obviously the apocalypse of the New Testament isn't very differential to the secular powers. So there's a different spirit abroad in some of these materials. And so the rabbis basically blame the war against Rome on this kind of literature. And that's why the Maccabee books probably didn't get into the Jewish canon. And this book was too popular not to. But it probably was demoted a bit, as I thought. Anyway, Nebuchadnezzar falls prostrate at the end of this interpretation, and he says, 47 years, God must be the God of gods, the master of kings, the revealer of mysteries, since you have been able to reveal this mystery. He made him the governor, I think, of the whole province of Babylon. Sounds a bit like the Joseph story. I don't know how true that is. Anyway, chapter 3, more about Nebuchadnezzar and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There were some famous spirituals about these people. And I don't know if this is in both of the Catholic and the Protestant Jewish Bible or not, but you can check it. We get the furnace thing, Azariah in the furnace in line 24. And some frightening material here, like line 29. Yes, we have sinned and committed a crime. Yes, we have sinned greatly. Kind of a Yom Kippur period would be appropriate where we are now. We've sinned greatly. We've not listened to the precepts of the law. But don't forget, even here, when you speak about Jews sinning or so on and so forth, the sin is not obeying the law. It's not that they sin by doing this or that or the other thing, like Mel Gibson would portray them as. Their view of the sinning is that they didn't obey the divine law. Now, it's very hard to obey the divine law, I can tell you. Everyone who knows it would agree with that. So this is an internal literature. You know, the problem is this was translated and sent overseas. So then people got the idea that the Jews were committing sins all the time, everywhere, and being punished by their God for their sins. And when in fact they were just kind of asking forgiveness in their literature for not being up to the severe weightiness of the law that they had supposedly taken upon themselves as a whole community. And you know that a lot of us don't observe the law in all of its facets because it's just impossible. Way beyond anyone's ability to do in the modern period, that's for sure. And in the ancient period I can't speak about. But here they're saying, you brought these disasters on us and put us into the power of our enemies. Well, that was then interpreted in the Christian period. Rome conquered Palestine because of their sins against Christ. You know, and that became a whole leitmotif in the Western world for 2,000 years. It's just a small jump from here to that. But I don't think that's what the Jews meant. That's what happens when your literature, see, the Muslims forbade the Quran to be translated from the Arabic. They paid no price, therefore, for their book being popular to anyone, because only Arabic-speaking people could, in theory, read it. The Jews paid a huge price for their literature going into Greek and other languages, later Latin. Huge price, and still are paying it, frankly. Still are paying it. For good or ill, they gave their culture and heritage to the world through translations, and it bounced back upon them. I mean, I've seen pictures about the Nazi occupation in Eastern Europe, where people are next to ditches, and survivors have told the story, and a woman with her child says to an SS officer who they're just shooting people, you know, Einsatzgruppe, and shooting people into these you know, pits. Why are you doing this? And the guy will say, because you killed Christ. You know, literally said to her on her death moment. So how does she know? Well, because the bullet glaze off, but it didn't glaze off her child. And she crawled out from under the body and came to tell the tale. She might be lying, I doubt it. You know, the point is that, you know, this is the psychological impact some of this thing can have in people's minds. You know, turn acts of total brutality into something that's in their mind justified, you know, in some weird, twisted way. So, you know, I say they're still paying the price today, and I don't know where or when it will ever end, but look at this. It's because they didn't listen to the law. Now, when we get into Pauline literature and the scrolls and stuff, I showed you a little bit, I can show you some more, that Paul definitely doesn't want people to obey the law. He says those who obey the law are under curse. They follow a service of death. We want a service of life, and so on and so forth. He has all kinds of very elegant rhetorical expressions of this, but he wants not to obey the law. The people who wrote this would condemn him. They would not accept him, given their attitude. Therefore, I don't think the tradition he represents can take their literature for its own when they would not feel that he was worthy of their tradition in his approach, if you follow what I mean. You have to take these people. These people are fighting for the law, and they're fighting for the law in the Maccabee books too. You can't then take and pick and choose parts of their tradition and take it for its symbolic value for yours and say that you're properly carrying out the tradition that they represented and passed down. That is, you know, that's like cherry picking. That's what everyone accuses Bush of doing with the intelligence report. So you have to be careful there. You want to use this literature, you have to take it in its totality. You can't just take bits and pieces, say, oh, that's our Messiah in the coming up clouds of heaven, when the people who are writing it here are saying, we're suffering these things.